Good morning, friends. Well, it's come to that stage where I get up really early in the morning and get out into the garden at 6 o'clock so I can get things done but beat the heat in the middle of the day. Today is going to be around 29 degrees. Yesterday was 31. So I've got a bit of checking on the garden to do today because I wasn't out here yesterday. And while I did do some watering in the morning yesterday, I didn't really check on everything. So I'm going to have a little bit of a look around the garden first and write down my list of things I want to achieve this weekend. Behind me are my potatoes, and wow, what a difference 1 week can make in the growth of all of the plants, as well as the grass that I'm standing on right now. It is quite high and I need to do some mowing. So that is one thing that is on my list for sure. I'm noticing a little bit of weeding that I need to do around these potatoes, but I'm almost inclined to go diving and see if I can find any new potatoes among these plants here. Some of my tomatoes are growing taller and I'm noticing that they need a bit of pruning. So I will be coming by and pruning these tomatoes. Some of them have a few flowers on them as well. So I've got to make the decision whether I take off those flowers depending on what sort of tomatoes they are. I kind of want these plants to take off and be a lot taller before they start putting out a lot of flowers, but I'm inclined to keep a few of them on the plants. I am pruning the laterals though, so I'm just making sure there's 1 leader on each of the tomato plants. However, I just noticed there's 2 leaders on these ones. Got to make the decision which ones I chop out. So this one here this is 1 leader, and then this one's growing out too. And I've got one over here, and it looks like I've tried to snap that one off, but it hasn't snapped off easily. So this part here is what I'm taking out. So you've got the leaf coming out from the branch, and then you've got the one in the middle. You want to take this off. It's sending up lots of leaders, and you really want to just have 1 or 2. And I'm noticing a bit of damage on these leaves. I want to cut these leaves out of this plant. I need to go and get my pruners for the big tomatoes, but this one's quite small. It's got a flower stem on it, so I'm going to take that off because the plant is quite small still. And take out, see there's the leaf there, and this is the main stem, and I'm taking out the one that was in the middle. I'm also going to take off any leaves that are touching the ground because that will introduce the disease from the ground up into the plant. So this one here is one of the ones that came up by itself. So I'm imagining this to be a cherry tomato, and these 3 here are also ones that came up in my garden by themselves. So I'm going to take off the flower bud from this one, and it's got a few of the branches that need taking off lower down. So I've pruned that one back nicely. This one's also got flowers on it. The plant's too small to support the fruit, so I'm just taking them off. So it looks much cleaner now. It's got nothing on the base. Oh, it's got one. Hang on. Now it's got nothing on the base. I've also got some amazing basils growing, which is really exciting to me. I put a lot of energy into raising some basil plants. I've just gotten distracted by the primrose, which is now flowering over there. Hi, sweetness. Hello. Say hello, Luna. Her tail's wagging to you. So I've got the basils protected from any bugs that might come along and want to munch on them. But I'm noticing that some of them are really strong now, which is a good sign. And it means that I can almost take the covers around them off. I'm pretty excited about this. I'm really, really wanting to have a lot of dried basil and be able to use fresh basil a lot this summer. Some of you might already know that we try to only eat what we grow here for at least 3 months of the year. So we have gone without fresh basil and dried basil for years in the past. And sometimes I'll be gifted some homegrown basil, and that will be really, really exciting and nice. But I tend to try to not buy any herbs. And so I just use what we've got on hand. We have got a huge amount of thyme growing right now, and I do dry a lot of that because it tends to not be great in our really cold winters. And we, of course, have coriander in abundance when it comes to winter and early spring. But now the coriander's out, we've got coriander going to flower, and the flowers are actually really nice in salads. They give quite a strong coriander taste. But things like oregano and basil, if I don't have those things growing and I don't dry them, then we don't use them over winter. We tend to use a lot of thyme because we are able to grow a lot of thyme. We have rosemary and we have parsley. We always have parsley coming up by itself, and it's always in abundance, especially in wintertime and spring and perhaps autumn as well. At the moment, all of the parsley is going to seed. So I'm hoping that we will get some plants soon. But I'm keen to sow some more herb seeds because herbs are so important to me to be eating and having. So my attention on the herbs has changed a lot, and I'm giving them a lot of my time. I had a little bit of a gap in the potato row here, so I decided to plant some bush beans, and they are doing quite well. I did sow them quite close to one another, and there are a few gaps where some haven't come up. And this is a random potato, which I think has come up from seed from last year. But yeah, I've got all these beans coming up. Oh, there's another one here. So I'm hoping they do really well here and they don't get too overshadowed by these now massive potato plants. And here's my really odd zucchini. You guys will remember if you've seen my videos recently. This is the odd growing one that only let out one leaf in its first leafing and then another one leaf in its second leafing. So this must be its third and fourth leafing now. And yeah, I've left it in the ground because I haven't had another plant or decided to sow another seed. But we had the chickens come into this garden and I had the most beautiful zucchini plant growing here. They dug it up and it died. Very sad. So we are now on high alert from the chickens. I get really, really upset when they dig up all of my straw and my sugarcane mulch. They came through here and they dug up all of this, but it seems to have been fixed. Whereas over here, they have dug through this mulch and, yeah, caused a bit of a mess throughout here. So I might need to come and mulch this garden a bit more. They also kicked off all of these covers over these plants here, and the plants aren't looking too happy. I need to come along and put a bit more nutrients around these ones, I think, and make sure that the soil is feeding them well, but they've sort of been disturbed. Some of their roots were disturbed. I know this one was majorly disturbed. And yeah, they just came really close to these ones and they're sort of yellowed off a bit. So I don't know how this is going to go. We shall see. I've got more of the fennel coming up, even though I keep cutting it out and digging it up. It still keeps coming back. Behind me is some netting that I haven't been under for quite some time. So I'm interested in taking all this netting off and seeing what's under here. I can already see that there is some fennel growing and it's getting quite tall. There are a lot of calendulas that need to be taken out among all the carrots that I've got growing here. There's also possibly some pumpkins and certain things coming up from the compost. And I've already taken out some of the poppies from under the netting because I wanted the bees to get to them. I've had a bit of cross-pollination happening on my poppies last year, and these are a cross between maybe a white one and the red ones, but it's stripy and it's so pretty, and the bees are just all over them. So I'm going to collect the seed of these beautiful ones. So I've got some seed pods happening here. I'm going to collect these so I can grow more of these beautiful new poppies in my garden. All right, let's take off this netting and see what we have under here. Oh, there's a massive sunflower right here, and there's so much fennel. Oh my gosh, my spinach. Oh my goodness, it's so lush. This is the main part that I've wanted to keep under cover. It's the kale, and I've got all this seed that's going to dry off that I want to collect. But I've also got some brassicas on the other side of this kale. So I think I'll probably stop here with the netting once I get it off all the way up to the kale. Okay, so I have all of these calendulas coming up near this carrot row. So I want to take all of these out. And then this is a carrot row as well, and it's got all of this stuff growing in here. And then I've got something growing here, perhaps a pumpkin. So I've got some tomatoes growing as well. I've got this weed in here. But the carrots are looking quite strong. Some of them are looking quite tall, despite the fact that they've got other plants growing next to them. And then my parsnip's doing really well as well. But I've got this massive fennel here I need to dig out. I've got this brassica growing right here. So this must be a broccoli. And I thought maybe it was coming up from the stem of one of the old broccolis here, but it doesn't look like it was. I have got this broccoli here that went to seed, and I've got to take this out of my garden. I've also got the rest of the spinach that was going to seed here as well. And there are quite a lot of weeds throughout this patch here. So I'm going to be rejuvenating the soil along this section and planting out perhaps some more beetroots and carrots in here. And here's that sunflower. I've got to make the decision as to whether this sunflower stays, whether I try to dig it out, whether it's too big to dig out. There are some smaller sunflowers growing as well, but look at this spinach. Look. This looks amazing. Look at that leaf. Look at that spinach. So this is the spinach that I planted here. So that's the type, Matador, and it is huge. I've also got all this fennel through here, so I really need to attend to this fennel and cut it out as closely to the ground or as deep into ground as possible. I've got some tomatoes coming up as well, and I've obviously got a lot of spinach to harvest from here. I will use this spinach in my breakfast this morning. Yum. Then I've got more carrots growing along here, along with some beetroot, a massive mullein plant growing at the base of this poppy plant here. So that's exciting. I'm going to harvest some of these leaves today. They're looking really healthy. And I will dry these mullein leaves and use them in a tincture over the winter time. And this carrot patch here, I'm not sure where I finished up. It looks like I have sown carrot seeds along here. Oh, maybe I've actually sown some leeks or something along this section. But the carrots are quite thin along here, so I might weed the area and sow a few more carrot seed into the ground. And there is a pumpkin or something here. I don't know if I can transplant that. That is quite big. But obviously I don't want it growing right on top of my carrots. So I'll have to make a decision here as to whether I try to dig it out or whether I leave it. I'll probably dig it out. The bees are finally getting access to these flowers, so they must be so happy to have some more nectar to find on these flowers that have been hidden under the netting. And over here I've got some more spinach. This is the Bloomsday spinach, and I actually sowed this inside rather than that other type that's over there. I planted the seed in the garden for that one. And here I have a few basil plants that I purchased. This one needs to have its cover taken off. So I purchased these ones as opposed to raising them. I just wanted to make sure I had a huge amount of basil growing in my garden this year. So I did purchase some seedlings, and these ones are doing quite well. I'm inclined to come along and pinch off all the tops to prompt these plants to then bush out a bit more. So I'll come along and prick them off like so. And then they shoot out. These side shoots then come up and they do the same thing. I'll pinch them off eventually. And this basil will be used in dinner tonight, which that will be so, so yummy. I'm also going to pick off any of the older leaves that are looking quite unwell, whether they're yellowed off or they've been eaten a bit. I'm going to go through and pick those off. Oh, there's a little spider living next to this basil. So I will go back through my other basil plants and do the same thing and pick off all of the top shoots to try and promote them to grow bushier. But I've got this little bundle of basil so far, and I think it's trying to rain now. So I actually had a look at the weather forecast for yesterday, and it said that there was a possible flash flooding rains and hail on a 29-degree day. I mean, I'm not even wearing a jumper out here at 6:30 in the morning. I do need to have another look, and my kids have explained it to me because they have learnt it in their homeschooling as to how the hail occurs on hot days. Is it something to do with the pressure and the temperature up there and the something to do with something, obviously, to make it hail on a day that's, it hasn't even gotten below 20 overnight. Well, I think it did, maybe got around 18 or something. It's been a warm night. Yeah, so quite interesting. If you do know, let me know down in the comments below. Why does it hail on a warm day? So there were a few drizzles, and it does say on the weather app that it could rain right now. There are a few clouds around, but I doubt we're going to get any rain right this moment. It's not, the clouds aren't dark enough. But we are expecting from 0 to 5 mils, so that could be something and nothing. But I prefer it to come down gently. But the fact that it says flooding rains makes me think that this rain will perhaps just fall all at once. And I'm a bit concerned if the hail actually occurs. So I'm going to be on watch, on high alert today, and I've got sheets and covers close by in case it does decide to hail. So we shall see. I will report back and let you know if it does. These sunflowers over here are getting quite tall, which is very exciting. You know how much I love sunflowers. And I haven't put in more seed, and now is the time for me to put more seed in. I've also got some very, very tiny sunflowers growing down here. So eventually they will grow up and be as tall as this one, and they'll surpass the Rio as well, because these are the mammoth sunflowers. It is looking quite moody now. Okay, I can't quite remember, but I think in my last video this area was still vacant, and I planted it out quite soon after. I've purchased some zucchini plants. So these are blackjack zucchinis. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And I've got some lettuces in between. So these are some lettuces that I have sown myself. And then over here, I've got some of the eggplants, capsicums, and chilies that I have grown myself as well. And they are doing quite well so far in this little patch here. But I am yet to go through the rest of this section here and get rid of the calendula and make room for more plants. I've got the garlics still growing in here. So once they are out, I will plant more. And I've been slowly going down the Rio row here and planting some flowers. And I've still got to make my way down here and probably plant some tomatoes. I've got quite a few tomato plants still inside to plant out. Chives are doing really well, but I need to cut some up and freeze them, because that was all of your suggestions, was to freeze them when I've got a bulk amount of chives. And I've got more mullein plants growing here. And look, this is the first time I have seen these. Look at all the corns. There's like a sea of blue popping corn here. Very, very excited about this. I think some of this corn is also another variety that I got from one of you lovely viewers who met me at Off Grid. Oh, I'm so excited to see all of these popping up. I need to harvest some of these magnificent leaves. Look at that massive, massive mullein leaf. Looks so magnificent. And I've got some potatoes, some random potatoes coming up, along with more of the pumpkins. I imagine these are pumpkins. This one's growing quite nicely. And I've got corn all through here. So I've got some sunflowers coming up as well. So sunflowers and another pumpkin. I'm just going to let all of these grow together. And these corns that I planted out a while back, they're doing really well. I did lose a few, however, when we had that hail that came down. So I've planted some more seed in here, and I've got some more blue popping corn coming up. And all of these broad beans need to come out, and I'm going to plant tomatoes in their place. So I've got lots of tomatoes actually coming up in the pathway as well, which I need to just take out or decide whether I'm going to use a few of them. It all depends on how much space I have left, but there are probably over 100 plants in here. The rain is just starting to spitter just slightly, and I've got my sun hat over the camera to protect it. I've actually purchased a little attachment that has an umbrella on my camera, so I'll be able to film in the rain and protect the camera too from the sunlight when I'm filming for long periods of time. So that's exciting. But I hope you enjoyed that little meander around my garden to see what's happening. I'm going to do a quick harvest of spinach and other things that are in my garden that need to be harvested in the morning. And then I'm going to get to doing a whole heap of weeding, because I've got a lot of areas to weed. And then we've got various jobs that we need to get done out on the farm this weekend. The drops of rain are starting to come a bit heavier now, but because it's so warm, it's just so nice. All right, I'm going to get on with this, and I will check in with you again very soon. Good morning, friends. It is a much chillier morning than it was yesterday morning, and we ended up having rain and hail yesterday. However, my garden is okay. The hail wasn't too strong coming down, so it didn't damage anything, thankfully. I didn't end up covering anything because I didn't actually think the hail was going to come. The weather app actually sent out a message saying that they cancelled the warning of a storm, but then we got the storm anyway. So I'm not sure what happened there, but we got lots of rain and everything's quite wet out here right now. It is 6:30 and I thought I was going to get out here and start gardening, but I think I need to let things dry off just a little bit before I start. I do, however, have some space where I could do some planting. So I'm going to go inside and actually edit the first half of this video and then come back out in half an hour and I might start doing some planting or some tomatoes. We did a whole heap of cleanup yesterday and I managed to move a whole pile of sawdust and put them in the pathways of some of the areas of my garden. So I'm excited that I've managed to do that, and I'm looking forward to when we have some more sawdust and I can complete the paths. And yesterday I managed to weed this section here, although I've now seen a few other weeds that I've missed, so I will have to go through this area again. And I need to start weeding in another section that I've just noticed a whole heap of calendula plants are coming up. I've got some things to plant. I want to sow another lot of carrots and I want to sow some lettuce seed in the ground as well. So I'm hoping to make some space today and to amend the soil, put some dynamic lifter into the ground, a little bit of compost and some gypsum and things like that. But I wanted to go and collect some alpaca poo as well from our paddocks because they do them in piles and it's really easy to collect. And then I'll probably add some of that into our compost bins that are finished that need to sit and rest, and I will add it into some sections of the garden. I of course don't want to add fresh manure to plants that might burn, although the alpaca poo doesn't seem to burn anything like the chicken manure does. So behind me is the Rio row that I want to add more tomatoes in the front here. I did have broad beans here, so I've cut all the broad beans out yesterday and I've got some fennel to chop out again that's coming up next to all of these tomato plants that I have growing along here. And I've got a bit of pruning to do on these tomatoes, but it's almost time for me to start tying the tomatoes to the Rio. We have a function on today and it will take me away from this garden for a good chunk of the day. So my plan was to get out here early and get as much as I could get done now before we have to leave for that function. So I might make myself a cup of tea, just do a little bit of editing so that I'm not overwhelmed by the editing later. And then I'm going to rug up a bit more because I'm feeling a little bit chilly out here right now and I'm just going to smash it. I'm just going to get as much done as I can. I do hope that you are all having a wonderful week. By the time this comes out, it will be a new week, but nevertheless, I hope you got some rain yesterday and you didn't get any damaging hail. I'm very, very grateful we got quite a lot of rain, and it was quite large dollops of rain too, and quite heavy at times. So everything has gotten a good soak. I can see from the weather app that we are going into some warmer weather coming up. There is about 4 consistent days of 30 to 37 degrees, and we've got a few days before then that are reasonably mild. So I need to get some things in the ground before that heat comes. So my aim is to try and get as many of the seedlings that I have in the ground so that they get a start off before it gets really hot. Wish me luck, friends. I hope you are also getting all of the rest of your summer seedlings in the ground this month. Thank you so much for all your support, for hyping my videos and commenting and liking. It really does help with the algorithm and all that. I really do hope that your garden is thriving, and I will see you again in my garden very soon. Bye, friends.